Welcome to the March 20th meeting of the East Hampton City Council. Could I have a roll call, please?
Justin Cobb.
Present.
Don Sikowski.
Here.
Salem Derby.
Present.
Dan Hagan.
Present.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Chester Ogilevitz. Dan Rist.
Here.
Joy Winnie.
Here.
Nathan Ziegler.
Present.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
So moved. Second.
One of us. We have a motion on the table to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Just the abstentions, no, any objections? Motion passes. Okay, at this point, this is the public speak time of our committee meeting. If there's any members of the public who would like to address the council on any agenda item that's not currently on our public hearing, please step forward and address the council. State your name and address. Seeing none, we'll go right to communications from elected official boards and committees, just to make sure there's none out there. If there's nothing there, I do have one reminder for people concerning the joint convention meeting on March 27th. And I believe we have for the most part, a tentative agenda. Just to give you an idea of how things are going to run. It starts with a roll call of people present, so we get an idea of the majority vote we need to vote. Then there'll be a vote to elect a presiding officer. Then there'll be a vote to determine whether we're going to have an open roll call vote or a secret ballot vote. And then there'll be a decision on the fifth applicant, who was a little late, but there are some extenuating circumstances to whether to accept her or not accept her for consideration. And then we'll get into these statements and questions from candidates, vote on our candidates, and the swearing in. That's just to let people know how we intend to run this meeting. That said, if there's nothing more, Mayor Communications?
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize this didn't get to the city clerk's office in time for your agenda, but I do have a request for a funding authorization for $422,838 that I believe is at your seat this evening. And I'd ask you that you consider that as new business for tonight's meeting. It's a funding request that provides money for ambulance and a heavy dump truck, and utilizes some available revenues or some available resources, the ambulance fund and some free cash, along with a bonding authorization. Included in the package is a letter from bond counsel to our bond advisor explaining how the process goes, or how the process should go, and also we've included a suggested motion that reflects the bond counsel's language.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Nothing.
Thank you. That said, moving on to reports of standing committees, rules and government relations, Councilor Rist.
Yes, Mr. President, the Rules Committee met this past Monday, or was it last Monday? I forget. Anyway, we met to discuss the amendment to Rule 5F as requested by Councilor McCoy. We did vote 3-0 to amend Rule 5F. You'll see a document I presented this evening, which indicates how the rule will change. I'll just read. The committee felt that the current rule does not conform to open meeting laws regarding discussion or debate of topics not placed on the agenda with required public notice. Topics brought up by the public during this comment period must be properly placed before the council through the clerk if they are to be discussed during a meeting. The committee also recognized that on occasion members of the public or city officials may bring information to the council that might require questions being asked by the council members, i.e. what time or where is an event to be held, etc., and they should be allowed. The council rules must have clarity to give the presiding officer guidance in enforcing the rules. This passed 3-0. There's no questions. I'll read it into a motion.
Any questions from the councilors on this item? Councilor Rist.
I move that the City Council amend its Rule 5F under public comment, striking the last sentence, which did read, remarks will not usually be followed by any kind of dialogue, and adding a new sentence or two In order to avoid possible violation of open meeting laws, the council shall not engage in any dialogue regarding remarks made at public comment. Dialogue regarding information on local events and/or public service announcements may be allowed at the discretion of the presiding officer. I move that in the form of a
Second.
motion.
We have a motion on the table to, and that's been seconded, to recommend an amendment to Rule 5F, public comment, as previously described. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Counselor Rist, you still have the floor.
Thank you, that concludes.
You good? Finance, Counselor Hagan.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is, if you see it under finance, is a request to enter into a pilot agreement with Borrego Solar. The assessor, principal assessor, and a member of the Board of Assessors came to our last subcommittee meeting and want to send in a different proposal. This particular proposal was Borrego's version. And after talking with the city attorney, they felt that they should bring forward the proposal. So at this time, I'd like to move that we, the council approve removing this from the agenda without prejudice.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend removal without prejudice, the request to enter into a pilot agreement with Borrego Solar. Is there any further questions on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Counselor Hagan.
Moving on to the supplemental appropriations, and if it's okay with the council members, without objection, I have to set several public hearings, and I'll do them all in one large motion. I'd like to set the following public hearings for April 3rd. $15,000 to replace the gravity thicker pump at the wastewater treatment plant. $15,900 for frame repairs to a Model 2000 dump truck. $26,000 for a new passenger vehicle for use by the city engineer. $51,000 for a new dump sander body for a Model 2003 dump truck. $65,000 to replace a heavy-duty step van used in the water department. $65,000 to upgrade the electrical systems at the Oliver Street pump station. And $70,000 to purchase a new flushing machine for the sewer department. All of these items are for public works projects. Therefore, I'd like to set all those public hearings in a form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to set the aforementioned supplemental appropriations for a public hearing for April 3rd, 2013 at 6:15 in these chambers. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
Returning to the interdepartmental transfers, we already have the $6,000 cost of the special election primary set for a public hearing on April 17th. But I would also like to request public hearings on the other interdepartmental transfer for that same date, April 17th. That's $20,000 to fund an expected shortfall in veterans benefits. And also a public hearing on the supplemental appropriation of $25,000 to fund the projected shortfall in the employee insurance budget. Again, that's in the form of a motion for public hearings for April 17th.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend a public hearing on 4/17 for the aforementioned interdepartmental transfers and supplemental appropriation. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Hagan?
Just a quick, there will be 4 public hearings tonight on supplemental appropriations, which we'll get to later. And because of the joint meeting with the school committee next Wednesday, there won't be a finance subcommittee meeting till April 10th in room 1 at 6 p.m. That concludes finance.
Thank you. Public safety, Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to set a meeting for 5:30 p.m. April 3rd in these chambers to discuss stop signs at Kingsbury Way and Strong Street. I may have to cancel it. We are, to credit to Councilor Winnie's experience, there was some question about the legality of the portion of Kingsbury Way down there where Strong Street joins it, so I'm gonna be investigating that. But assuming that all works out, we'll discuss the stop sign on April 3rd at 5:30 PM in these chambers. That concludes.
Thank you. Counselor Winnie, appointments.
None tonight, Mr. President. Thank you. No report.
Thank you. Ordinance, Counselor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. A brief report tonight. We are going to be meeting on April 10th at 6 p.m. in either conference room A or B downstairs. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Property, Counselor Psychowski.
No report this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
That said, we do have a couple extra minutes. We'll take on new business. I guess Counselor Hagan, I'll have the send it for you to begin with. There are actually 3 items, well, there are actually 2 items on here for you.
Okay.
If you want.
Going in reverse order, the item that the mayor brought up tonight, I'd recommend that, and I'll do a first reading on the following supplemental funding bond request dated March 20th, 2013. Michael Tozzik, Mayor, request is hereby made for the following funding. Amount requested $422,838 to be funded by the following: ambulance fund in the amount of $92,785.81, free cash in the amount of $40,052.19, and borrowing in the amount of $290,000 and no cents. The amount requested would be used for the following specific reasons: to purchase a new ambulance and cardiac monitor for the fire department, and a new heavy dump truck, plow, and sander for the highway department.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to recommend sending to finance the following supplemental funding and bonding request in the amount of $422,838 to purchase a new ambulance and cardiac monitor and a new heavy dump truck, plow, and sander. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Okay, Counselor,
The other item of new business that I would like to see sent to finance would be the request for Councilor Cobb to accept Mass General Law 59, Section 5K, the senior work-off program.
Second.
we have a motion on the table to recommend the request to accept Mass General Law 59, Section 5K, the senior work-off program to finance for review. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
Those are my items.
Why don't I take, you wanna take this? Next, because we got a couple minutes, we'll get through this real quick. What I have before me is the warrant for the city election. It reads as follows, State
Primary.
election?
Primary.
Yeah, primary election. I'm reading it now. Okay, it says, in the name of the Commonwealth, you are hereby to warn the inhabitants of the city of East Hampton are qualified to vote in special state primaries to vote at, again, East Hampton High School, 70 Williston Avenue, precincts 3 and 4, and White Brook Middle School, 200 Park Street, precincts 1, 2, and 5. On Tuesday, the 30th day of April, 2013, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the following purpose: to cast their votes in the special state primary for the candidates of political parties for the following offices: Senator in Congress for the Commonwealth, given under this day, the 20th. I guess I'd like to state this in the form of a motion to accept this.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. I'm gonna give it to Councilor Derby, just move that other one, then we'll go
Yeah.
right to special.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move that the request from the planning board to amend zoning ordinance regarding residential kitchens be moved to ordinance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to recommend a request from the planning board to amend zoning ordinances concerning residential kitchens to the ordinance committee for review and consideration. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. I'll take a motion to enter into public hearing, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to enter into public hearing. Is there any further comment on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstention? Motion passes. Counselor Hagan?
We have 4 public hearings on supplemental appropriations. The first one, I'll do a second reading. Supplemental appropriation request from January 29th, 2013. The request is hereby made for approval of the following appropriation. The amount requested, $20,000, to be appropriated from CPA Historic Preservation Fund. In that amount, $20,000 to be appropriated to boiler replacement expense, $20,000. The amount requested be used for the following purpose: to fund the cost of installing a new boiler at the Emily Williston Memorial Library.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to recommend, oops,
No, just open the meeting.
sorry,
Just doing a
Yeah.
second.
Threw you off, yeah.
thank you.
Just a quick summary, and then I know there's some individuals that will call to the podium to speak, but this was a request that came to the CPA committee under the preservation, historical preservation portion. It is a capital improvement, so it does qualify under CPA funding. The Library Association did go out and get some bids that said the total cost of the project would range from $21,980 to $28,907. The CPA only chose, obviously, to give them, or request that we give them the $20,000 appropriation. And it was also made clear to the association at the subcommittee by the mayor that if we do appropriate this, there would have to be an open bidding process to actually establish the funding. The purpose of this, and I'll call Mr. Bednarz up in a second, is to really replace an old oil-fired boiler that is, I guess, in pretty bad repair. Also to remove the oil tank and some surrounding asbestos. They want to go to a very fuel-efficient gas furnace that there is gas lines near the library that they can hook to. But if Mr. Bednarz would like to come up and speak.
I'm Ronald Bednarz, 24 Overland Drive, and I'm the president of the Library Corporators. And we're planning to help us to get some help to replace the boiler, so we don't have to go through with the church up the streets going through over the weekend, or the last couple of weeks. And it's, like you say, it's on the verge, and it's cost us $12,000 a year to heat the place for oil. And that's not even a full year sometimes. So when we got prices with a more high-efficient gas boiler, it would cut the price in half of the fuel from $12,000 to $6,000. Then we could use the $6,000 to open up on Saturday mornings to fund, to help to run the library for 4 or 5 hours on Saturday morning.
Are there any questions? Okay, none present. Counsel Winnie?
Did the association approach Williston for any donations or anything?
Yeah, the
No? Okay.
Okay. Counsel Psychowski?
At one time, I used to be associated with the library. I believe everybody remembers that. The thing of it is that it's definitely needed and it's a good expenditure, and the homework has been done on it. And the thing of it is, it's gonna bring it down and it's gonna release some money. I don't know how they're gonna handle that because I'm no longer with them, but it's a good expenditure for the town. Thank you. One of the times they can vote for the CPA funding without complaining.
Okay. Any other questions? I have just one comment I will bring up, that it was brought up in our deliberations. The fact that the so to say, a lion's share of the contribution is coming from the CPA funds, and that also that the savings, we did bring up, but what are they gonna do with the savings, because that's not coming back to the city, even though we're giving a lion's share. Well, in fact, it is, in the idea of expanded services for our residents. That said, you wanna do this all at once? or-
I just had one more quick, thank you, Mr. Bednarz.
Thank you.
I did also receive, or the committee did also receive in the CPA committee, letters of support from the members of the community, including one from the new health agent who does have some concerns, not immediate concerns, but thought it was a good project because she is somewhat concerned about the wrapping, the aging asbestos wrappings around the old furnace being close to the children's portion of the library, so I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, any further comment on this? Any other members of the public would like to step forward to address the council on this issue? Seeing none, Counselor Hagan?
I'll make the following motion. I make a motion that the council approve the following supplemental appropriation, amount to $20,000 to be appropriated from CPA Historic Preservations Fund, $20,000, and appropriated to boiler replacement expense, $20,000. The amount requested to fund the cost of installing a new boiler at the Emily Williston Memorial Library.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend approval of a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $20,000 to fund the cost of installing a new boiler at the Emily Williston Memorial Library. Is there any further comment on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objection or abstentions? Counselor Hagan, you have the floor.
Our second supplemental appropriation public hearing tonight, I'll do the following, second reading. Dated January 30th, 2013, request is hereby made for the approval of following appropriation. Amount requested $27,000 to be appropriated from free cash, and that amount $27,000, and appropriated to computer capital expense $27,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to upgrade the computer's network domain.
That said,
Sure, I just soon call Mr. Small up, who can give us a little more background on the.
Good evening, Barry Small, Systems Administrator. Yes, my department's requesting these funds to rebuild the core of 2 domains. We have one in this building and one in the public safety building next door. This will replace 4 servers that are getting quite old, and the domain software that we use to run the domains, and it would also pay for the engineering that we need to set most of it up.
anybody have any questions, technical or whatever, concerning this request?
Just one quick
Counselor
one.
Hagan?
So this is basically just to upgrade, I mean, something given the age of, or.
Yes, this was a
the,
project that
short
I
life
would have
of
put in.
computers.
I would have put this in last year
If
also.
you had
but,
to.
yeah, it's a little overdue.
Thank you.
Okay, any other counselors? Seeing none, thank you. Any member of the public who'd like to come forward and speak to council on this issue, please do so. State your name and address for the record. Seeing none, Counselor Hagan, you have the floor.
I'll make the following motion. I make the following motion that the full city council approve the supplemental appropriation, the amount of $27,000 to be appropriated from free cash, $27,000, and appropriated to computer capital expense, $27,000, for the following purpose: to upgrade the city computer network domain.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend approval of supplemental appropriation request in the amount of $27,000 to upgrade the city's computer network domain. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Counselor Hagan, still have the floor.
Third public hearing tonight, I'll do a second reading, dated January 30th, 2013. The request is hereby made for approval of following appropriation. The amount requested, $78,000, to be appropriated from free cash, $78,000, and appropriated to police department vehicle acquisition expense, $78,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to purchase 2 marked police vehicles.
Okay, that said, I'd like to, there's some real detailed information in the packet, but if the mayor would like to come forward and actually answer any questions that people might have on this request.
Yeah, I think you have all of the information, but very briefly, this is to replace 2 existing police cruisers with new vehicles. The current vehicle, which is a Crown Victoria, is no longer manufactured by Ford, and we've not been able to locate any. And so this would be actually the new version of the Ford Interceptor, which is an all-wheel drive vehicle. Comes in a sedan or an SUV style. This is the SUV style, same as, I believe, there was a newspaper article recently with the city of Northampton. It's coming in at approximately the same price. We're trading in the vehicles that we are replacing, and this won't increase the size of the fleet, It will maintain the size of the fleet, and these vehicles are about 20% more efficient than the current vehicles.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Counselor Psychowski.
Mike, if I remember correctly, a year or so ago, that the police department used some of their drug money to purchase a vehicle for the chief or something like that. There's no drug money available this year to purchase a vehicle with? Or you,
The drug forfeiture money that was used last year was used to purchase a marked vehicle. So it purchased the cruiser that the city wasn't able to purchase, and no, there are no funds available for that purpose now.
I just wondered if we could save $30,000, that's all.
Okay. A good question. It was actually brought up in finance also. Any other members have any questions?
I'm
Counselor Derby?
just curious, Mayor. I don't know. You mentioned that there was two models. That there was the SUV version, and then I believe there's one that's more like a.
It's a sedan. There's a
Ford,
sedan
like
and
a
an
Ford
SUV.
Fusion.
Well-
I was recently in Chicopee, and I noticed that they have new cruisers, and they're using a police spec Ford Fusion. So, and I don't know. I mean, I know that we do have an ordinance on the books, and maybe I don't remember seeing anything specifically about the comparison between this vehicle and the other vehicle as far as gas.
So there are two police cruisers. They're both in your packet. I believe the comparison of the two are in your packet. I believe,
Yes.
and I'm going on memory, but I believe that there's a minor difference in mileage between the two, and the all-wheel drive capabilities really far exceed any kind of loss, because face it, when we face winter weather like we have recently, I get around really well in my small SUV, a lot better than those Crown Vics ever did. I think a front-wheel drive sedan might work better. The real reason that the chief provided for not wanting the sedan is room, and you've heard that reason before about vehicles. There is room in the back of the SUV version to be able to put a contained prisoner. That room doesn't exist in the coupe, in the sedan, and that's a real concern to the police department. To be able, we don't have a separate transport vehicle, and so they need to be able to use their marked cars for transport purposes. So it really does, I think, go a long way in meeting, although these vehicles are exempt from the state requirements of efficiency. This is a huge leap forward for them in providing a vehicle, and I think that the specs you're looking for are in that
Yep.
handout.
Looks like that. Thank you.
Certainly.
Just
Counselor
what,
Hagan.
to just mirror a little what the mayor said, when the chief was also concerned, chief of police was also concerned about visibility on the sedan, which is also why they were concerned about not going with or looking at the Dodge product. There's a somewhat of a visibility problem on the sedan, and it does get, this is going from an 8-cylinder to a 6-cylinder. And also, I believe idling is very, like 35 or 40% more efficient supposedly in idling time than the. Right.
Any other questions, Counselor
Ford has done a
Psychowski?
wonderful job increasing the efficiency of their vehicles, especially in this fleet coming up, and I concur that it will save the town some money on fuel.
Okay. I will state this as a comment. At the St. Patrick's Day Parade, I had the opportunity to actually view, feel and touch and see, thank you, Mr. Mayor, a number of these that have been bought by surrounding communities. I heard nothing but praise about the vehicles, their roominess, their visibility, their power, along with their fuel savings, and even in some cases, their handling and the benefits of the all-wheel drive. I heard actually nothing but praise for this new Interceptor model. That said, if there's any members of the public who would like to come forward to address the council on this issue, please state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, Counselor Hagan?
Yeah, I'll make the following motion. I request the full city council to approve the following appropriation. Amount requested $78,000 to be appropriated from free cash, $78,000, and appropriated to police department vehicle acquisition expense, $78,000 to, for the following purpose, to purchase 2 marked police vehicles.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend approval of supplemental appropriation request in the amount of $78,000 to purchase 2 marked police vehicles. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? Motion passes. Counselor Hagan, you still have the floor.
Our final public hearing this evening on a supplemental appropriation. I'll do a second reading. Request is hereby made to approve the following appropriation. Amount requested $5,000 to be appropriated from free cash $5,000 and appropriated to city clerk capital equipment $5,000. The amount requested to be used for the following purpose: to fund the cost of high-density shelving to be installed in the municipal building.
Thank you. If there's any member of the public who would like to come forward and address the city council on this issue, please do so. Please identify yourself. I just love seeing you.
I live here, I think, but, Barbara, your city clerk obviously has all the details, and she's provided that to the,
Did provide
to
some
the
additional
committee.
information tonight.
This is a small part of a larger project, and it's a project that the city clerk and others in the building have been hoping that would move forward at some point. There are two dedicated storage rooms in the building, neither of them with the appropriate furnishings to be effective as a storage room. And so this begins a high-density shelving project in the larger of the two rooms. And overall, I think in the capital request, this is about a $45,000 project when it's all said and done. But for now, we'll get away with some shelving that will hold more than the kinds of shelving we've been using, and will make the space much more efficient. And I think that in the future, the city council will hear more about adding to this beginning project, and it can be done in increments over time. And so this is a small start to a bigger project.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councilor Hagan?
Just further comments, it's finance, we did take a field trip down to the storage area, and the clerk showed us the condition. What's currently down there was kind of shelving that's getting a little sway backed, and the boxes, some are on the floor, and I think this would be able to not keep, these aren't historic records, I mean, these are just city records, but I think it would keep them in a much more organized way and also preserve them better so they're up off the floor and in a safe condition.
Okay. If there's no other member of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, Councilor Hagan?
I'll make the following motion. Request the full council approve the following appropriation. Amount requested $5,000, appropriated from free cash $5,000 and appropriated to city clerk capital equipment $5,000. The amount requested to be used for the following purpose: to fund the cost of high-density shelving to be installed in the municipal building.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend approval of supplemental appropriation request of $5,000 to fund the cost of high-density shelving to be installed in the municipal building. Is there any further comment on this motion? I will state this rather briefly, that being on that tour, this is a good first stage effort to actually start what appears to be a daunting task, to kind of organize the files in a fashion where they're not in boxes stacked above my head level, starting to crush each other, so that we can actually get some organization and availability to them. So I'm very pleased to see this. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? None? Motion passes.
Move we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion, yeah. Motion passes for the first one. We have a motion on the table to adjourn. Okay, seeing no objection to that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.